Well, hello everybody and welcome to the 185th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse Podcast. I'm Steve Wellings and this evening I am joined by Mr. Adam Smith, Andy, Donny and Paul. We did have Mick Doonan on for a while but he's disappeared. Not to worry, if we can get him back on again we will do so. And apologies also guys for no show on Sunday evening this week. We had a few technical issues, things didn't work out and whatever. You know, from time to time we have family work commitments and all that and we weren't able to put a show out. It happens irregularly, so apologies about that. We're on tonight, quick fire show. We're going to get through all the things from the weekend, talk a bit of Crawford, Postol later, hopefully some Twitter questions, Facebook questions, and a little bit of Bellew of the week as well, if we can fit it all in. We have a heavyweight panel with us, so let's get right off. We're going to start this week, guys, I think, in Birmingham, Alabama, where we saw Deontay Wilder successfully defend his WBC World Heavyweight title with an 8th round retirement stoppage win over Chris Arreola. Arreola was dropped in the 4th round. Was never really in the fight at any point. We thought beforehand he might be a bit of a walking punch bag, a bit of a heavy bag, and that's all he proved to be at the end of the day. He wasn't able to really provide Wilder with much of a stiff test, and Deontay did pretty much what I expected him to do. I thought Wilder looked a little bit heavier than usual. He looked quite solid. He used the jab well, but there's still a lot of flaws, a lot of deficiencies and things that he needs to work on. I said a few fights ago that I thought Anthony Joshua would knock Deontay Wilder out. I still stand by that opinion. I don't see Wilder even beating your Hayes or your Furies. I'm just not that impressed by him. I think he has a lot of fundamental flaws. He came out with a hand injury on Saturday night, and he does a lot of things badly. And I think whenever he fights somebody who's going to hit him consistently, heavily, and back him up, he's going to be in a whole world of trouble. Adam, were you impressed by Deontay's performance? Am I maybe been a little bit harsh to him, or were you not really fussed on what you saw?
Well, like the vast majority of Deontay Wilder's career, I'm not really fussed. I mean, I know we've got the backup excuse of the hand injury that looks genuine. I've got no reason to disbelieve that, so we'll keep that in the back of my mind and my thoughts. But he should have been sorting out Arreola quicker than he did. A lot quicker. Arreola offered absolutely nothing, and that is yet another heavyweight contest, or particularly a heavyweight supposed world title contest, where the opponent has offered absolutely nothing. There has already been 2 this year at the O2 Arena. Charles Martin fitted that description to a certain extent, but not as much as Mr. Martin. Dominic Brazil also fitted that description of offering very, very little. I posed a question on Twitter and I will pose it again to you guys. Other than the obvious physical advantages and genetics that Deontay Wilder holds, i.e. a very big and athletic frame that can throw a decent looking jab at times, not amazing, but a decent looking jab because he's quite long and athletic, and a powerful right hand, which you would expect of an athlete at the size of that he is, 6'7" or whatever he is. So other than those 2 things that you could argue he was born with, what else does he bring to the game? And what other skills has he developed in his very padded and protected record? And I would suggest very, very little. He still gets, not necessarily at this weekend, but against Spilka, he still gets caught regularly with shots that he shouldn't. He gets caught off balance regularly, and his finishing instincts and methods are poor. I think they are poor at worst and very messy at best. I think that he starts winging away, leaves himself wide open, almost falls over himself, gets too close, misses with shots. I think he, if I remember correctly, he hit or nearly hit Arreola while he was down. You just can't be impressed. How can we be impressed with Deontay Wilder? I mean, even his best performance, which was probably Stavern, wasn't necessarily impressive. It was surprising in that he did something that we'd not seen from him before and went the distance and boxed a little bit, fair dues. But I think that's 4 defences now of Vitali's old title. How can we be impressed by any of those? I mean, Molina, who we've never heard of, and who I think Arreola's actually beaten. Molina nearly knocked him out. That's quite plain to see. Duhaupas caused more problems than he should have done. in a million years we never saw him causing that many problems. Spilka was too small, yet still landed quite a few punches, and then Arreola did naff all, and it took him a corner retirement far too long into the fight. Fair enough. I mentioned again that he's got the hand injury, but it just wasn't good enough. And the whole Wilder's whole operation and whole career, especially since holding the so-called title, has not been good enough. So, as Steve said earlier, and he's sticking with his opinion that Anthony Joshua would knock him out, I would go quite a long way to agree. Now, people would argue about Joshua that we've not seen anything to back that up, which is fair enough. But it's just how we're calling the fight, and from what we've seen so far from two very padded and unproven records. I'm going on a bit now, but that's my opinions.
Can I argue with that?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Donna.
I mean, look. First of all, Chris Arreola is better than anybody on Joshua's resume. Period, and that's saying a lot, or perhaps to say not much. And also, Deontay Wilder was actually about pretty close to a 50-50, according to the odds, if I'm not mistaken, Adam, versus Povetkin before that fight was slated to happen. Povetkin obviously was on a roll. He had been knocking a lot of people out, and the odds makers still made him 50-50 to beat Povetkin in Russia. So obviously, he must have some sort of attributes that make people think he's a halfway decent fighter. You say he struggled with the hoppers. I don't think that's true. I think the guy has just a cast iron chin, and is just one of those guys that you could put your heavyweight in with, who's going to give him rounds, kind of like a Kevin Johnson, Kingpin Johnson. And also, I don't think that, Molina didn't almost knock him out. I think that's a little bit of an overstatement. I think.
Donny, I'm being serious, mate. That sticks vivid in my memory. Molina was on the brink. And bear in mind, Molina was a pretty much unknown, visually out of shape fighter with a pretty poor record, i.e. a first-round loss to Arreola. And he was very, very close to getting Deontay Wilder out there.
I think that's a dramatic overstatement, but
I think we need to go back and watch the fight then.
I did watch the fight.
No, that's I'll do the same, because honestly that is sitting in my memory that Molina, I remember it. I watched it on the Sunday morning. Was very close to having him. Anyone better than Molina, and there's a lot of people out there. Anyone better than Molina would have got rid of Wilder in that moment. Molina was too fat and not good enough.
Why did the odds makers make him 50-50 with Povetkin then? Were they all stupid?
I think what I would say to that is, Donny, that you have to put into that statement, and yeah, it was pretty close to being 50-50. You have to put the Russia element in that statement when we're talking about.
He was the American fighting in Russia.
Povetkin's better than fucking Molina, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, though, Donny, the reason it's close to 50-50 is that Russia favours Povetkin a lot. I think you would find if that fight took place in Vegas or somewhere in America, then Wilder would be a much stronger favourite. So I think that's a location bias rather than Povetkin being, 50.
Right. My point is that if it's a 50-50 fight, usually bettors, odds usually reflect the general consensus about what the public thinks about fighters. What I'm saying is that if he was on a 50-50, basically 50-50 with Povetkin, and Povetkin is widely regarded as a very, very good heavyweight. Obviously, he's not on the level of Klitschko or Fury, but he's very, very good. If Wilder's in the mix with him, then he's in the mix with pretty much anybody.
Yeah, but the fact is, though, Donny, he's not been in the mix with Povetkin by hook or by crook. So, apparently, we turned the year 2016 was a new era in heavyweight boxing. The new era was all looking forward to it. There's some great fights to be made. America have got a star. We've got two potential stars. Was turning a corner. We've seen 3 heavyweight fights this year, and the losers of those fights have been Charles Martin, Dominic Breazeale, and Chris Arreola. That is absolutely shocking.
Well, I don't think Donny's arguing with that, Andy. Whenever we talk about Deontay Wilder, people say he's fought a lot of bums, he's had nearly 40 fights, but he has this one big win. If you look at it, his one big win is a win over Bermane Stavern, who really isn't that great. So if you look at Wilder's record, if you unpack it, if you look at the defences afterwards, and just take in the cold light today the fact that he hasn't fought Povetkin, whether he was willing, but that fight hasn't taken place, his resume is so weak. Who can he fight next? He has to surely unify or fight somebody decent. He can't continue along this stream of lesser opponents. Andy, would you agree with that?
Exactly, mate. Can you hear me okay, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, we were due a response with the WBC over the Povetkin situation, I think about 4 weeks ago. We're still waiting. You know, the way it's sounding is, well, honestly, I've not seen the fight, so I can't really comment on it. But I have seen some comments, I've seen some of the highlights and stuff. If you go back and listen to my comments when I spoke to Peter Fury about Deontay Wilder, I have never been impressed with him. He goes back in straight lines. If you look at his left hook, he's far too slack with it. It needs to be a wee bit more tighter. Right hand still needs to be a bit more straighter. I did give him a lot of props for the way he stopped Spilka. I mean, that was a good counter right hand he stopped him with. But, you know, who can he fight next? I haven't got the details on in front of me just now. I'm not up to speed. Obviously, I've been on the piss for the last, 10 days now. A wee bit of sunstroke here and there. But Povetkin is going to be the next fight. I really don't care what anyone says. He needs tested next. Now, I've seen some comments from David Hay mentioning that Anthony Joshua needs to fight him right now. The way David Hay's talking is, it sounds like David Hay wants everybody to fight each other so he can then come in and just clear up the rest, you know. But I don't know, Povetkin, Fury, well, obviously Fury's fighting Klitschko next, you know, and then you got AJ fighting Parker possibly in the next couple of months. So I think we're looking at 2017 before we see Wilder back in the ring by the sounds of it. Well, I think he's got a broken hand by the sounds of it, but I really don't know. I mean, I agree with what Adam was saying there, actually. I mean, the heavyweight division, when Fury won last year, that just cleared the decks for a new heavyweight era, and, you know, you were looking forward to some great fights. You heard me, I was really disappointed when that Povetkin Wilder fight fell through the first time. So it's like the heavyweight division again is back. It's back on hold again. It's stagnant again. You know, you had Klitschko just basically dominating for so long. You Fury's shaking it up, and then it just kind of like it just seems to have taken a backward step a little bit. So it's really unfortunate. You know, the politics and the drug testing and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the other thing is, well, we haven't heard anything about Fury's supposed failed drugs test, have we? This is the other thing. So we don't know what's happened with that either. And supplies Klitschko hasn't made a wee bit more kind of, you know, a wee bit more song and dance about it, so to speak. But no, as for Wilder next, mate, it's got to be Povetkin, hopefully, sometime at least early 2017.
Paul, Andy mentioned a few names there. One of them was Joseph Parker. I actually believe Parker is returning just a couple of months after the Carlos Takam fight this Thursday evening in New Zealand against Solomon Homono. Parker's a guy who's keeping active. We like to see heavyweights keep active. Just looking in the studio, actually, David Hay was there on Saturday evening watching the Deontay Wilder fight, and he seemed to see quite a few flaws in Wilder, but he also saw this injury that Wilder seemed to have to his arm or something. It looked like as if he'd ripped the skin on his arm or something. I haven't actually looked in depth to see what the problem was. Do you have any more information on what was bothering Wilder there, or?
It looked like a tattoo gone wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry, did someone come in then? Yeah, I mean, I think it was it a torn bicep? Someone was saying. I saw that his arm was swollen as well as his hand was damaged. So I think that he deserves a bit of credit in the fact that, considering the injuries that he had, even though he was faced with Chris Arreola, who might not be the best heavyweight in the world, he's not an immobile object. You know, he's someone you've still got to get out of there, and he managed to do it, albeit by a corner pull out. But he obviously had Arreola.
Paul cut out.
Am I the only one not hearing Mr. Webb?
No, I cut out at me as well, mate.
Paul, are you with us or have you gone? I think we've lost Paul. We'll try and get him back on as quickly as we can. In the meantime, I will defer to our guest caller. Hopefully we can get Mick Doonan on the line. Mick, I'm going to unmute you. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, lads.
Excellent stuff. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm sure you saw the Wilder fight on Saturday night. Just want to get your opinions, what you thought of Wilder, really. He pretty much had it his own way with a smaller opponent. He was trying a few things out there. He seemed to be clowning around a little bit, but he used the jab pretty effectively and boxed quite well. But was it a case of not really having much in front of him?
it's been the same for like all his fights, all his whole career. The bigger man fighting the smaller man, and there was nothing much there. If you were a heavyweight boxer and you were watching him and he was a champion after 40 odd fights, 30-year-old, you'd be saying to yourself, what do I have today to actually become a heavyweight champion? Because he still does stuff that basic amateurs can do. Like, he still boxes back in straight lines, and he's so bad for having that many fights and being a world champion. It's unbelievable, really.
Mick's not too impressed with Wilder there. Guys, I'm going to just go down the undercard actually before we move on to Wales. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time because there were quite a few fights over the weekend. I've already mentioned a few fights coming up, but on the undercard of Wilder Arreola, we actually saw Sammy Vasquez lose to Felix Diaz. I was watching this one with the sound turned down, and I saw it announced as a majority draw. It wasn't until I was listening to a YouTube video, I think it was earlier, when someone said it had actually been announced incorrectly, and it was changed to a win for Diaz afterwards. No great surprise, because Diaz is a decent fighter, and Vasquez maybe isn't going to turn out to be the fighter that we thought he was. Also, Jamal James got a win over Wally Amatoso. Erickson Lubin, I'm glad to see him back in the ring so quickly. I think fighters these days don't fight often enough, and to see him after the win over Sandoval coming back to beat Ivan Montero, I was very pleased to see him back in the ring. Also, a win for Big Gerald Washington, possible heavyweight for the future, defeating Ray Austin. And Victor Chilean, poor old Vic, he suffered his 8th or 9th career defeat to Sergio Frias with a second round KO.
That was sick, man.
It's time for Vic to retire, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, definitely, mate. I mean, he probably is going to be a lock-on Hall of Famer in my opinion, but to see him get dropped like that, I seen the GIF file on Twitter. Sad to see that he just can't take a shot anymore, but it was pretty sick actually. And the brave bastard, as usual, tries to get up. You know, you can't fault his heart. That's the main thing. But time to give it in now, Vic.
Yeah, Vic's been around for a long time. I remember him even fighting the likes of Irene Pacheco and all these type of guys along. It seems an absolute age away that Donaire was beating him and taking over the mantle. And it's time, especially at those lower weights, for someone, Vic, pushing 40, if he's not 40 already, to maybe hang up the gloves, I think. Guys, we'll skate over quite literally to the Ice Arena in Wales, in Cardiff. The fights off this card that I have actually seen, Guillermo Rigondeaux knocking out James Jazza Dickens. Well, it was a retirement actually in the second round. A big left hand and broke Dickens' jaw. He was unable to continue. It was a bit of an anticlimax, really. I did see that one on YouTube the next day. I also saw the Liam Williams win over Gary Corcoran for the British super welterweight title, according to BoxRec, which would be light middleweight, I suppose. 11th round knockout win for Williams. Bit of bad blood, bit of beef in that one, even after the bell. It's not often after the bell you see guys still chirping away at each other. Usually the mutual respect is evidence, but Williams really seemed to have it in for Corcoran even after the fight had finished, which we don't always like to see that. Anyway, Terry Flanagan won a unanimous decision over Mazonki Fana. I really was expecting Flanagan to get Fana out of there, considering how long he's been around. So I haven't seen that fight. I'm hoping maybe the guys can fill me in on that one. Wins for Bradley Skeet. Tommy Langford got a knockout win. Joe Pigford, Craig Evans, Dale Evans, Tyrone McKenna, Gary Buckland, Jamie Conlon. Bloody hell, that was a long card. Gary Sweeney and a couple of others as well. I'm going to go to you, Adam. Pretty much take your pick off this card. I'm not going to lead you in any particular direction. Just tell me what you enjoyed from Saturday night.
I thought Gary Buckland had retired. That's my first comment. But so he's obviously clinging on to something. Flanagan got bored. Turned off. I think I ended up with watching cricket highlights. Actually, that's how sad I am nowadays. I will give props to Mr. Presspass, who said that Fana might be better than what we expected. We didn't expect a lot, and we always said he was too old, too small, etc., etc. And Flanagan was reasonably boring, to be honest with you. But he wasn't happy with himself. He said as much after the fight. I think because he was meant to be on July the 9th, undercard of Fury Klitschko. I think Flanagan and his team, when the Fury fight was in limbo, then eventually cancelled. I think they had a week of a quiet week in training, so then he had to get back on it. So it's fair comments they make. He should have been doing better with the guy who he fought Saturday, but ultimately he didn't. And he clearly looks to me, when he was sat on the side of that ring and after the fight, he clearly looks to myself that he's a man that he wants the big fights. He needs a big fight. He needs Crawler, really. And you've got to think that, has someone like Flanagan got the loyalty to Frank, or is it? And I always get them mixed up, Steve Wood or Steve Godwin. I'm going to go with Steve Wood. I think he operates through or with Steve Wood rather than Frank. I might be wrong there. So you have got to wonder whether Flanagan is one that could jump ship, rather than, for example, Liam Smith or formerly Billy Joe Saunders, who deal or dealt directly with Frank, if you see what I mean. Flanagan, I don't think, does deal directly with Frank, so might be one to jump ship. He needs a boost in his boxing career, in his life. He needs something to get up for, and Frank is not delivering it. But for whatever means, it's not being delivered. The Williams and Coram fight was a good one. I was looking forward to it, and it was a good fight to watch. It was dirty as fuck. We had Williams was throwing low blows all over the gaff. Coram was trying everything. I think I saw some. I think my best mate Shep tweeted something out about an attempted eye gouge with the inside of his glove. That looked nasty. There was heads flying in, like you said, Steve. There was bad blood throughout. I did back Williams KO, and you could see that the other lad was getting tired, and he eventually delivered. I didn't see any more of the undercard, but that fight. Oh no, I watched Rigo as well. I don't really know what to say about Rigo because he's too good. At boxing, the man is too good. He's just standing there. It's like me against my brother, my younger brother when we was kids. Because I knew he was smaller than me and slower than me and not as experienced as me, I would stand. You could stand. Rigo can stand in the pocket, and he's that quick with his reactions, and he's that good that whatever Jazza does or anyone else does, he can just get out of the way of. But it is boring to watch because Rigo is waiting for the action to come to him, and you want to see Rigo putting your foot down. And he literally in that second round, I've not watched the round back, but literally by my memory, he landed one punch and he's broke the kid's jaw. I mean, it's a funny situation to be in because I'm like an idiot standing here saying he's boring, yet he's landed one punch and he's broke the kid's jaw. I mean, that should be, by definition, as a boxing fan, quite bloody exciting. But I just don't get it. And then the best thing about Rigo that whole week was his translator. His translator was superb. His translator was absolutely superb. But Rigo, again, like Golovkin, ain't getting any younger, so he needs. The problem with Rigo is he's that damn good, but he needs the likes of Frampton. I know Frampton's moved up, but he needs the likes of whoever's still knocking about at Super Bantam more than they need him. It's a terrible situation for him to be in, and it's such a shame that was only his 17th pro fight. He is absolutely brilliant. The best way I can put it, he is too good for a casual like me. That's how good he is. He's too good. Move on.
Donny, I don't know if you saw the Rigo fight against Dickens for all that it lasted, but Rigo's come over. He's promised in the past that he's going to put on a performance, and we always believe him every time. We thought against Julian Francisco he was going to put the performance on, and he stunk the place out. This time he did come out firing shots. He showed the skills, the movement, and he really got stuck into Dickens, and it was unfortunate the way it finished actually. But after this contest, whether you saw it or not, do you think the leading super bantamweights and featherweights, as Adam alluded to, will be lining up any quicker to fight Rigo, or do you think they'll be running a little bit further away from him?
No, in New York in 2 weeks we have a battle of Rigo Duckers. I know you're going to it. I might be as well. But I mean, people would rather move up a division that they don't even belong in rather than stick around, just for the sheer fact that people will tell them, if you stick around at 122, you got to fight Rigo, right? They don't even want the public heat, so they pretend like it's time to move up to a new division, and they move up. Nobody wants to fight him, and a lot of that is, well, it's definitely the fault of all the other fighters who have no guts and are failing to live up to the moniker of champion that they carry around these belts, but really they won't fight the best guy in the division. I think that's shameful. But at the same time, Rigo also bears some of the blame for this, because he was offered to get signed by Rock Nation, who, whatever you think of them, Andre Ward is making $2 million in a couple of weeks to fight Alexander Brand, and he's going to be in a pay-per-view showdown with Kovalev at the end of the year. You have Miguel Cotto, obviously, makes good money. Rock Nation wanted to sign him, and Rigo said that they weren't offering enough money, and they wanted to make him one of their centerpiece fighters, and he turned him down. And he's stuck with those idiots down in Miami. What are they, Warriors Boxing or whatever? Those guys that take advantage of all the Cuban expats that come over.
Is it Caribe?
Oh, Caribe, that's what they're called. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Caribe, yeah.
Yeah, oh my God, those guys are such a bunch of scam artists and con artists, and they ruin very talented fighters, and Rigo is just the latest in their long line of victims. You know, I mean, he's not going to, when he's with, like, basically, he used to be with Aram, he's not anymore. Now he doesn't have the connections, he's not going to get the fights, and I think he either needs to decide, you know what, look, I don't know what he's going to do, but I mean, he needs to hook up with somebody and be willing to maybe take short money just to get in the ring with one of these guys. You know, that's the only thing he can try to do, and it's tough. And no one's ever going to fight him until they see him slip. And when you're blasting guys out the way he is, he even moved up and he fought that monstrous dude I remember in Japan.
Hasegawa.
Yeah, he wasn't even that great of a fighter, but he was so much larger, and Rigo still beat him. So I mean, you know, what are you going to do? You know, his whole career is just you know, probably the most illustrative example of everything that's wrong with boxing in the modern age. It's just that you know, people aren't fighting each other, and they'll still be able to make a living even though they ignore the top fighter in the division, and it's really sad. I mean, as boxing fans, we would hope for the best, but we rarely get it. This is a sport that we all love, but it's a sport that very rarely loves us back.
Yeah, I think I just need to correct myself there. I think Hasegawa was actually the guy who lost to Johnny Gonzalez. I think it was Amagasa. Donny, I know you were going to pull me up on that one, so I just wanted to just make a correction there. Andy, Donny's wondering which way Rigo's going to go. Now, Frank Warren will obviously be interested. He's tried to get him over before. He's got him over a second time. He was waxing lyrical before and after the fight. This is a jewel that Frank will obviously want to keep hold of. And given the fact that Rigo is finding opportunities hard to come by, then this could be a little match made in heaven. Actually, BoxBet Monster sent us a question in saying, do you think that Warren is actually considering maybe Rigondeaux versus Zolani Tete? Would that be something that would interest you?
Well, absolutely, mate. I think that'd be a great fight. I mean, Tete's at bantamweight just now. I mean, at the same time, Rigo could make 118, I think, with relevant ease. You know, he's very, very small for 122. He's got to eat himself into the weight for what I hear, anyway. To be honest, mate, I mean, what can Frank Warren really kind of make fights for Rigo? Because we saw what happened the first time he was meant to fight Jazza Dickens. You know, he failed to materialise, or he failed to turn up. Caribe's got a lot kind of hold over Rigo. I'm going to speak to Bryn later on this week. I'm going to get him on the show next week. See if we can give me more info off the thing about Caribe promotions and stuff. But definitely Zolani Tete, you know, again, him against he needs a big opponent as well, I think, because I think we all realise that he is a top talent, or he has got the ability to be a top talent in the division, especially at 118, I believe, and 122. I can't even see Eddie Hearn or Joe Gallagher will even want to make that Scott Quigg fight. I mean, Scott Quigg. I mean, this is the other thing as well. For what I read, I think Jazza Dickens got his jaw broken. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's at least 3 opponents he's badly fucking ruined by. Yamagasa, sorry. You know, Jazza Dickens, and then Nito Donaire. He made his face like a bag of spanners. I mean, Scott Quigg just returning off, you know, a broken jaw himself. Is he want him broken again? Nah, he's not going to fight. He's not going to fight Rigo at any point soon. So yeah, he's going to find the fights hard to come by. So if Frank Warren can make that Zolani Tete fight, then sign me up for it, please. Mick,
feel free to talk about Rigo or anything on the Cardiff card, but just leading into it, Andy mentioned the broken jaw there for Jazza Dickens, and the Boxing Inquirer was discussing the broken jaw. He says quite a few fighters would have fought on with a broken jaw. Scott Quigg recently, for example. We've seen a few badly broken jaws in the past. Obviously, the one that stands out to my mind is when Arthur Abraham broke his jaw against Edison Miranda and somehow fought for about 6 rounds with the thing absolutely hanging off. I mean, do you blame Dickens' corner for pulling him out as soon as they realised it was broken, or was it a sensible move?
It's hard to say. But if it was me, I'd have to be going on the process of saying his corner's pulled him out. He'll have to fight another day. He's not a champion. He's not defending nothing. He's more than likely going to lose and have a better shot down the line. It's a bad break, to be honest, really bad. And personally, think about Rigo is that he really needs to fight somebody that's gonna maybe has to go up a division where everybody's moved away from him. And the better fighter he's in with, the better he's gonna look. And the man is super talented, and it's a shame that he can't get fights that he deserves. I watched some of the card, and I can only really agree with what Adam says. I liked the Williams-Kirkoran fight. That was just something that where two fighters have both got decent enough records and are looking for that next step. A fight Eddie Hearn wouldn't make, to be honest. But it was good enough. Frank's just in his usual. It was a 7 or 8 fight card, and there was one decent fight on it, and then we got the showcase of Rigo. But he's got to improve these cards. It doesn't matter what he puts on. His Box Nation cards for himself aren't that great, but he's getting loads of international fights, which is kind of saving Box Nation at the moment, I think.
Do you subscribe to Box Nation, Nick?
No, Team Stream, obviously.
Yeah, Team Stream, baby, Team Stream.
Team Stream. And fuck you, Dab, just in case you're listening.
You don't buy pay-per-views then, no? No, fair enough. Cheers, Mick. We have a caller on the line, regular caller, recent contributor as well, Mr. Amir Khan. Not that one, Donny. He's jumping on to have his say. Amir, I know you were trying to get on Sunday, and we've been trying to get you on recently. I think you might have wanted to discuss the Brook Golovkin fight, but feel free. The floor is yours. What do you want to bring up at the moment?
Fuck.
I didn't see any of the boxing this weekend, so I am a bit clueless. But the Jazza Dickens fight, quickly comment on that one. I think it was a complete mismatch, as many of you probably knew. Dickens shouldn't have even been in the ring with Rigo happen.
I've got a bit of a bad connection from Amir at the moment. Sorry, Amir, I've just had to cut you off briefly. If you're able to just check your microphone or whatever and just see what the deal is with that. While Amir's sorting out his microphone and hopefully working out what his connection problems are, I'm going to open it up to anybody who saw the Vijender Singh fight. Does anybody want to say anything about this? Was it any good? I only saw a couple of rounds, highlights.
What I will say about the Vijender Singh fight, why the hell's Frank Warren got him fighting out in India with Kerry Hope and then show on a replay feed later? Why was he not showing that live, his own fighter, that he's set up his own card over in India and couldn't show his own fight?
It's a strange one, that, isn't it, really? I mean, Vijender's only had 6 fights. He's obviously massively popular. We know he's got like 2 million Facebook followers or whatever. He's bringing in the Indian audience. Frank's obviously looking to tap into that the way that Bob Arum has tapped into the Chinese market. And, I mean, from a pure skills point of view, I mean, does anyone have anything to say for Singh as a fighter? I mean, has he made the transition from the amateur game to the professional game? Does he look like someone who's going to make a solid, like a world champion? Is that realistic?
No. I still think he's got that. He's still obviously got that amateur style. I mean, I obviously kind of comments. I've never seen the fight and stuff, but for what I have seen him, he's been matched very, very kind of softly, which is fair enough. But see me talk about a guy with his amateur wealth and experience. I've always been a guy, of the belief if you're being a really talented amateur or had that many fights, I think you've got to put them in deep. Very deep. I call for it with Rigo, I call for it for Lomachenko. Now, I know we're not talking about the same type of skill set and stuff, but see, at the same time as you got a guy in his late 20s, possibly early 30s, there's no point feasting him to these type of fighters. I mean, I don't even know what the result was against Kerry Hope, for instance, but I understand he did win. But I suppose it's a step in the right direction. I heard, is it right they're trying to make the Amir Khan fights next? Or there is talk about it?
Oh, I didn't hear that, Andy, really?
Well, I've been seeing comments, and I think he's been calling for that fight, or I've seen Khan making comments about, be careful what you wish for and all that sort of shit, but I suppose it'll be a big money fight over in India or Pakistan where we want to plan to hold the fight or whatever.
Khan just got his ass kicked by a middleweight. I mean, he's going to fight a super middleweight?
Yeah, Singh's a super middle, isn't he?
Well, suppose, but I remember the last fight I did see him was before Kerry Hope. He did look quite fleshy the way
they
did claim he was.
160?
What?
Could he make 160 maybe?
I suppose he could. I mean, I'm sure he fought as an amateur at around about middleweight at amateur level is like 162, 163, I think it is. I wouldn't think it's against the realm of possibility, like.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, the whole India-Pakistan thing, I mean, that would obviously be a really big event, global event. It'd be an interesting spectacle, but I feel like that's probably the last fight Amir takes in his career, you know what I mean? I just don't feel like that's something that is going to be in his immediate future, because it would, if he got knocked out brutally, it would ruin the possibility of other lucrative fights for him. I mean, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Talking of Amir Khan, we seem to have lost our own. He's dropped off the call, so maybe he can get his microphone sorted off and come back at a later date. We won't worry too much about that at the moment.
This week, so I haven't seen a stitch of single fights in that. Sit back, a sun lounger, fucking burnt to a crisp, a fucking half pissed, a can of beer, just shooting the breeze, man.
It's fucking good stuff.
Andy, you sounded like you'd gone into a bunker for the beginning of it, but I know that it was beer and drink and enjoyment related, so we're going to take your word for that. Moving over to Germany, guys, this is a fight that I did watch over the weekend and I actually really enjoyed it. Tyrone Zuger with a draw against Giovanni Di Carolis for the WBA World Super Middleweight title and the Global Boxing Union World Super Middleweight title, so it was bullshit titles ahoy, but it really was an enjoyable fight. And also Arthur Abraham returned on the undercard. I was starting to think it's time for maybe Abraham to hang the gloves up. He's had nearly 50 fights now, and he's had a lot of hard fights, but he got a knockout win in the 8th round over Tim Robin Leehaug, one of your Scandinavian brothers, Andy. Not sure if anybody saw these fights. If you do, jump in. I really did enjoy the Zuger fight. I think he looked gassed from about the 6th round onwards, but just kept on throwing punches. He's not a guy who's going to succeed at world level, I don't think, but the Carolis maybe looked like he had done enough to get the decision from what I thought, but the draw it was to be. Did anybody catch this one on Sky?
I caught that fight. The Carolis, I thought he won it at 115, 113, but a draw was probably fair as well. I didn't think Zuger had done enough to win it, but he seemed to hurt his shoulder seemed to pop out in about round 10 or 11, the challenger, and they had to actually push it back in. It didn't look too nice, but that rematch is probably set to happen. And if I was the Sorlins, I would be throwing George Groves in there against the Carolis, just for an easy pick up. I know it's a fake title, but just to pick him up that, and then you can introduce him, because it looks as if Sturm's going to lose his title. He's got the super title, I think. And I've not really heard too much about his actual drug ban he was expected to get, but
he's partly disputing, mate. He's partly disputing the transportation of the drug sample. He apparently hasn't called for the B sample to be tested yet. He's mainly disputing the transportation of the A sample. So he's trying to muddy the waters, trying to say. I think the way he's trying to kind of word this is actually that his sample's been tampered with. I think that's what he's trying to say.
It doesn't seem too convincing a story, to be honest. But if I was the Sorlins, I'd be throwing George Groves in there to take that regular belt and hopefully get upgraded when Sturm loses his. And George Groves will have that world title that he's been trying for about 10 years.
Should be noted that the Sorlins do have one fight option left on Di Carolis.
and there are rumours going about that it will be Abraham.
Abraham being snuck back in there. Just looking at the fight news rankings, actually, in the WBA, we have George Groves is quite highly ranked. Patrick Nielsen's also quite highly ranked, and also coming in at number 5 is the prison canteen graduate himself, Isaac Ekpo. So I'm imagining the best super middleweights in the world are wanting to be avoiding the grenade as best as they can. One more show that I'm going to mention, guys. I know it seems like a lifetime away now, but it was one day after our last show, was the Sergey Kovalev win over Isaac Chilemba. So I think it's only fair that we sort of get stuck in and have our say on that. Personally, I think Kovalev looked okay. He seemed to tire a little bit towards the end. Before this fight, I picked Andre Ward to beat him. I haven't changed my mind from what I've seen here. I actually do want Kovalev to win the fight, but I just think that Ward might have the edge over him. But saying that, if Kovalev catches you, Ward included, if he catches you clean, he's going to make you think about things, and he remains a massive puncher. Adam, do you want to talk about anything in Russia? Was Isaac Chilemba, who beats him, was he the perfect foil for Kovalev, really? Do you think a first-round knockout would have been more beneficial to Kovalev, or do you think the fact he's gone the distance is more beneficial? Not really matter?
He looked a little bit flat and disappointed at times. He did hurt Chilemba, but really, who's getting the better preparation ahead of a mega fight? Is it Andre Ward against a slightly awkward, sneaky almost opponent, or is it Andre Ward next week against some bloke that I've never heard of, because I'm a casual, but I've never heard of him. So although on the face of it, and I didn't watch the fight live, I was disappointed at the result almost for Kovalev, given that he didn't get Chilemba out of there. But we do have to remember, and as Tony will remind us on regular occasion, who does beat Isaac Chilemba and who does actually knock him out. Not many people at all. So, we was kind of expecting the something that's not happened before from Kovalev, although he often delivers that. But good preparation, probably, yeah, certainly better preparation than the question you pose as in a one or two round knockout. Certainly better preparation than that. You just have to really, there's a few things going into account. I think his missus has had a baby recently. He was back in Russia. Chilemba's a bit of a spoiler at times, and he's obviously got the biggest fight of his whole life on his mind to take place later in the year. So, all in all, it wasn't a disastrous performance by Kovalev, but it certainly will not strike fear shuddering through the back streets of Oklahoma. No, Oakland. Sorry, not Oklahoma. Definitely not Oklahoma. Oakland.
No, I don't think Oklahoma will be worrying too much, to be honest with you, either way. Donny, beforehand, a lot of people seem to think that Kovalev, the Crusher, was going to destroy Chilemba. Now, afterwards, we found out that he had all these media commitments. He had a lot of things to do. Isaac Chilemba, in hindsight, seems to be all of a sudden a lot better than we thought he was. Are these all legitimate excuses, or are we trying to throw in a bit of confirmation bias here to sort of convince ourselves that the Crusher really is the legitimate sort of threat that he is to Andre Ward?
Wait, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I don't think I followed that.
What I'm saying is, beforehand, a lot of people thought that Kovalev would get rid of Chilemba, but the fact that he struggled a little bit in parts, and the fact that people have been saying afterwards that Chilemba is a good opponent, and that Kovalev had a lot of media commitments and stuff, are we making excuses for Kovalev? Or are these legitimate things as to why?
No. We're not making excuses for him. I mean, you can't knock everybody out. I mean, yeah. I mean, no. Come on. I mean, no. Look, I mean, Chilemba is a quality fighter, and he knows. I mean, he's got a lot of head movement, and he's quick, and he's a difficult guy to fight. He's tricky, and I mean, you can't always knock guys like him out. That's just the sport. I mean, nobody, can literally knock out everybody. I mean, it's just not possible. And Chilemba's a top 10 contender. He's never been stopped. So by expecting Kovalev to stop him, like I think Adam just said, you'd be expecting him to do something that no one else has ever done before. And because our expectations and our own sense of Kovalev's abilities is so high, we actually expect him to do things that no one else has done before, because he has set the bar that high for himself. But I don't think that has any bearing on his chances against Ward. As a matter of fact, if anything, I think that this was a great preparation for Ward in terms of, they're not. Nobody's a carbon copy of Ward because Ward is a all-time great and and one of the top pound-for-pound fighters in the sport. And so you can't ever get somebody that's going to perfectly mimic what he can do, because if somebody was a perfect mimic of what he could do, not only would they be a threat, but they'd also be a top pound-for-pound fighter in the world. But in terms of what the attributes that he has, I think it was perfect preparation for the Ward fight. And I think Kovalev is going to come in as ready as he can be. I think Ward, while his tune-up opponent isn't as great, nonetheless, he always shows that ring rust doesn't really show on him. I think he fought Edwin Rodriguez after about 16 or 17 months off. Maybe could be wrong on that by a month or two. But anyways, he fought him with a long time off, and he came back and looked like he had never missed a step. So I think both of these guys are going to be coming in perfectly primed, and no one's going to be able to have any excuses come November.
Andy, what can Alexander Brand bring to the table? We don't really know too much about him. What is he going to provide to Ward as a way for tuning up or getting prepared for the Kovalev fight, or is it just simply a way of just knocking him out?
What do you say, Donnie?
I said it's basically, that's like Ward's insurance policy in case he loses. Yeah. He's getting paid $2 million to fight this guy.
That's what I was alluding to.
that is what it's about. It's another payday, because just to go back to the Kovalev situation first, Steve, if I can. I do believe people were looking and making excuses for Kovalev. Now, the thing is, the media commitments. Now, if you're a top fighter in this sport nowadays, you are required to have these media commitments. Now, we heard the excuses with Anthony Joshua in his last fight. Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, they've had a litany of media obligations and stuff. Not once did it affect their performances. Floyd Mayweather was expected to go to jail after he fought Miguel Cotto. Now, I know he didn't look great against Cotto, but he still did in the business. The other thing with Kovalev as well, one thing I could probably give him a pass on is if you've got a kid on the way, it can affect your build up. But you need to remember as well, Kovalev, he's had a kid before, or his wife had a kid before. He wasn't even at the birth of his first child because he was preparing for a fight the first time. This time he must have just like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be there at the birth this time. So, I just think some people are looking for excuses and stuff. I said, if anybody wants to go back and listen to the last podcast we did, I told all our listeners what type of fight this was going to be for Sergey Kovalev. It was going to be a good fight, a hard fight, and a proper test in the build-up for Andre Ward, and that's how it turned out to prove. And at the same time as well, Chilemba, give him all the credit in the world, by the way, because that guy could have got knocked out, or he could have stayed down. Was it the 8th round he got knocked down with the right hand? Was that a jab, right hand cross?
Yeah, I think it was 7.
It was a pretty brutal knockdown, and Kovalev did try to kind of take him out of there, and the boy survived. You got to give him all the respect in the world. Now, reverse the situation. If that's Andre Ward taking that right hand, does he get up? I'm not too sure. I really am not too sure. And to be honest, I would probably say that Chilemba's probably more a kind of bigger guy at the weight. I'm not shit on Kovalev. I just think some people were looking for excuses and stuff. Chilemba, was a good test. He was a good build-up fight for Andre Ward. Now, a lot of people obviously were jumping off the bandwagon. That the way he looked, they were looking at excuses of like he was way bear hunting or whatever it was. His child being born, he was media obligations and stuff, all this sort of thing. As I said at the start of my wee money rant there and stuff, there are a couple of things you could probably overlook. The kid being born is one of the things. Media obligations, we expect that of top fighters nowadays. So I really don't think the media stuff should really kind of be looked into in too much detail. Maybe just overlook the guy. Maybe just one of those off nights you think, my power can actually smash this guy up. And he came out the early door to kind of smash Chilemba out. And I did think he looked like he was slightly nervous. Chilemba was making a miss from punches from time to time. Good lateral movement. So fair play to Chilemba, as I says. Now, does it change my opinion on the outcome of this fight in November? Well, I have been on record saying that Ward will retire undefeated, and I still probably I'm going to stick with that saying. I did say at the time, once this fight gets made, I will be picking Andre Ward. It's a 50-50 fight, maybe slightly in favour of Andre Ward, and it all depends if Kovalev does land that money punch. You know, if you look at the 12th round against Hopkins, 12th round against Chilemba, Kovalev was putting the pressure on. Can Andre Ward actually adapt to that pressure? Because when he puts it on you, you know about it. So this is the thing. Andre Ward hasn't really kind of stepped in against a legit 175-pound fighter, well, especially one at the top level anyway. I mean, I don't say Elder Alvarez is a top fighter at 175, but no, it's going to be a close call, and it's one I think Andre Ward's going to take. And I agree with what Donnie just said there about Alexander Brand. It's simply just saving a $2 million payday.
Mick, final word to you. Enlighten us on how you thought the Kovalev-Ward fight would go beforehand, and whether this Chilemba fight has done anything to change your opinion, or whether you're still of the same opinion as you were before he went to Russia and beat Chilemba.
My opinion was that Sergei Kovalev would give Andre Ward the hardest fight of his career, but the same as Andy, I think Andre Ward will retire undefeated. It doesn't change my opinion at all on that. I thought Kovalev started to gas a little, maybe look a little bit tired 9, 10, 11, where in the Hopkins fight he didn't look as if he was ever tiring, and looked as if he could fight another 5, 6 rounds at the end of that. I know Andy's saying that will Ward get up if Kovalev hits him, but Andre Ward is such a hard man to hit. Will Kovalev actually get to hit him like that and put him down? That's a question for me. It's such a mix of two different talents, and Andre Ward's a complete ghost in there at times. He can stink places out at times if you're a casual and you think, oh, he's rubbish to watch. And I think him and Kovalev will just be. It could end up one of the best fights I've ever seen. Two of them at the top of their game. No scared to fight anybody. They've taken on whoever's came at them, and quite happily fight anybody. The winner of that, Stevenson will duck anyway, so there's no doubt about it. But I would like to see Kovalev and Ward, and then if it's that good a fight, I would like to see them fight again, if that was possible.
Yeah, I think I echo those sentiments. We don't have enough of that at the moment. Put the best fighters in together. We don't have to always search for opponents. Let them fight once, twice, 3 times. Let's have these great trilogies that the sport's been built on over the years. I definitely agree with that, Mick. Guys, that is the end of the fight reviews anyway that I know of. If anyone can think of anything else, then jump in and let me know if I've missed anything. But I think that was a pretty hectic weekend of boxing, and we have our fight previews coming up later, a bit of Crawford, Postol, and a few other bits and pieces we can discuss. Also, we have our Bellew of the Week. I've had quite a few nominations this week, so we should be flying along with that as well. Before we go into our Twitter and Facebook questions, I'd just like to thank everyone for listening at the moment, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, like the Facebook page, and leave us a comment below the YouTube videos. Give us a bit of grief if you want, a bit of abuse, or tell us what you want to hear in future. We'll either take it on board or ignore you, but get in touch. Right, Twitter, Facebook questions. Adam, I'm going to come to the first question to you. It's actually continuing from the Kovalev-Ward discussion, actually. It's an issue that was raised, I think Alex Morris actually raised this on Twitter, and Kevin Watson has sent us in a question relating to this, about what do you guys think about the Kovalev dodgy hand wrap thing. He was definitely acting a little bit weird on the video. Did you happen to see this video about Kovalev, this suspicious hand wraps? Was there anything in it at all, do you think?
The short answer from me is no. Alex alerted us to the video on the chat, and I'm going to echo Alex's comments, which whereby, Mr. Morris said if we could all get, videos of Floyd Mayweather taking a flush shot and slow it down to 100 frames or whatever it may be, and say, oh, look at that, that's poor. Although on the other side of that, I can say it did look a little bit suspicious to me, whereby Kovalev, I didn't watch it live, I've only seen this video, Kovalev to me looked absolutely hell-bent on getting that hand as far away from the ref as possible at the time. and he achieved that by pulling it away, giving it to his trainer, and then raising his hand before the actual call. But again, the video was slowed down. It had comments after every time Kovalev moved a whisker. But it's in Russia. And what we've heard about today from Russia on the drug testing scene, would you put it past them? No. Would I like to think that Kovalev, although he is a killer, would I like to think that Kovalev has come up the hard way, earned his stripes, and he's one of the best fighters in the world? Yes, I would. So I'm edging on the side of innocence as we speak.
Steve, can I ask what this video was, mate? I've seen some comments. Obviously, I'm in Sweden now. I can't, always get over to check things all the time and stuff. What's actually the problem here?
There was a video had been made up by a Twitter group. I can't remember who it was exactly. Boxing something had made this video, and at one point the referee's trying to raise Kovalev's hand and he's trying to pull his hand away. And there were various other things. Adam, I hope I'm remembering this right, where Kovalev was messing. They said he was messing with something inside his glove, or he was acting suspiciously. They were basically trying to say there was maybe an issue with the hand wraps, and he was trying to get something out or get something in before the referee had a look. And it looked a bit innocuous to me. It looked like one of those things where Adam said you slow things down and you could maybe make a mountain out of a molehill. Perhaps there is something in it we don't know in Russia. But at the moment, until you've seen it on Twitter, Andy, I can't really say one way or the other whether it's genuine or not.
It says, well, if anybody watched the fight at the time, and I did, if anybody actually watched the pre-fight stuff, Kovalev was actually getting his hand wrapped off John David Jackson at the time, and Kovalev's actually instructing him how he wants it done. Now, I have no problem with that. I know how to wrap hands, and it looked like nothing was wrong with it. At the time, what I seen Kovalev was instructing G to do was basically he was wanting extra wrapping around about his thumb, which there's nothing untoward with that. Now, really, you can if you want to get dodgy about hand wraps, go and watch how Oscar De La Hoya did with his hand wraps. So I'll let people go and actually kind of study it. Go and watch 24/7 Oscar against Floyd Mayweather. I think it's episode 1, and go and see how dodgy those hand wraps were. That was just in training camp. Now, people, as I say, I've not seen the video, so I can't really kind of give an educated get or comment on this one, but perhaps was maybe Kovalev's hand maybe injured at that time, maybe had a sore wrist at the time. Mike Tyson's been known to kind of really kind of rub his gloves into his knuckles to try and get his knuckle to the kind of more forefront of the glove. And then why would the referee be checking his hand wraps? It's down at the commission or the guy from the Russian boxing board of control, whatever they're called over there. It's not down to the referee to check the hand wraps after the fight or after the actual outcome. So I really don't think there's really any answer here.
Well, to be fair though, I mean, wasn't the guy what was his name, Luis Resto? Wasn't he basically caught by the opposing?
No, he was caught off Billy Collins' father because he went over and shook his hand and there was no pad in the glove. It was his dad that caught him out.
They made a big thing and they brought it to the referee. I mean, I feel like it's not the referee's place to be checking hand wraps, but I think that if they touch something and they feel it's suspicious, it's almost like a police officer who has probable cause, right? If they feel somebody's glove and it feels like there's something in there, obviously they're gonna be saying, hey, take off that glove, and they're gonna get the commission in there and look at it. I think the referee is still the first line of defense, but I mean, that being said, look, I mean, Kovalev has fucking slaughtered people under non-suspicious circumstances in the past. I mean, I don't think he was gonna load his gloves for fucking Isaac Chilemba. I mean, that's just fucking ridiculous.
Would you think the fact that the fight was in Russia felt that he could maybe take more liberties?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, listen, Russia's I mean, I'm reading some of the comments.
Not with the kind of money that you have hanging out there with Andre Ward. Are you really gonna blow that? I mean, for fucking Isaac Chilemba, I mean, he knows he's gonna beat him anyways. It's just a matter of maybe beating him in more emphatic fashion. I mean, you're gonna say he's gonna load his gloves to that, and he's gonna risk. It's a pay-per-view that's probably sold reasonably well. That's probably at least worth $5-6 million to him. I mean, is he really gonna to blow that? I don't think he's ready to blow that. I think that's crazy. I just don't put any stock in these rumors at all. I mean, we could say, oh well, it's Russia, but still, I mean, if you were to get caught with something, I mean, the payoffs just don't add up.
No, that's fair enough. We're asking the question, and I think you're probably right there, to be honest. Andy, This is a question from Ben Thorns on Twitter. It's quite an interesting one. And if you can't think of anything off the top of your head, maybe open it up to the panel. But to you first, after Rigo's brief appearance in the UK, which fight that you were most excited for most disappointed you? Is there something that you were really looking forward to and it was just a complete letdown? I can't actually think of anything off the top of my head. I've been trying to think about this.
Mayweather Pacquiao, definitely for me.
Well, yeah.
In the UK, you said though, Steve, wasn't it?
Well, it says after Rigo's appearance in the UK, so I suppose you can talk about any fight really, because maybe, say for example, I think he's saying the UK fight fans were really looking forward to Rigo coming over, and it was such an anticlimax. So any fight you were looking forward to?
Well, suppose Mayweather Pacquiao would be the one basically, because we had 6 years of clock teasing with that one. End of the day as well, you know what it is? I really this thing about going with the sport just now that I really just kind of like made me sick was, you know, that fight it really just made me lethargic with this sport just now. I mean, I'm really just coming close to the end with it, but probably Mayweather Pacquiao. What other fight? I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Povetkin Wilder maybe a recent one.
How about Povetkin Klitschko? People are excited about it.
That's a good call, that one, actually, Povetkin Klitschko.
Also, if you were going, I mean, how far are we going back? I mean, I could think of like Leonard Duran 3, complete shite fest. Also, other fights that Leonard Hagler, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I mean, it was only great because Ray Leonard came back from all those years off and everything with no tune-up and beat Hagler. But I mean, the fight itself wasn't really a great fight. What other things let us down? I think that I know in more recent times, I think Joshua versus Prince Charles Martin. Nobody really knew a lot about Martin, but because no one knew a lot about him, we were kind of maybe hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And I just didn't think that we expected the effort to be so awful as it was. I mean, he just, he was nothing. But I mean, I think we built that up. I mean, people were picking Martin to beat him. I mean, what were we thinking? But yeah, no, that was a letdown. I think people thought that would be a good test for Joshua, and he didn't really get it.
Yeah, that was a good shout, Donnie. Actually, I think it was the fact that Martin was an unknown quantity. There was something in the back of everyone's mind, well, definitely mine, like, oh, he might be really good. He could upset Joshua here, but it turned out he was just as shit as we expected he would.
I'll give one, Steve, from a personal one, talking from my pocket mainly. Hey, Klitschko. Not only did I back Hey heavily, I also travelled to Hamburg as well.
Poor old Adam. Poor Adam. Yeah, I mentioned Povetkin Wilder, of course, but that fight didn't happen, so it didn't really fit in with the question there. Andy, don't worry about that. We can still hear you. Right, Adam. Christopher Coulter is asking you, when Triple G chins Brook, do Khan and Brook bitch about who got chinned by the better fighter, a la Bellew and Cleverly?
That is an excellent fighter. Now, there's a couple of lads at work who are mainly casuals, and actually play up to the casual nature because they know I come on here and we criticise them. And they was winding me up today, and they said the favourite fighters currently are AJ, Eubank, Kell Brook, and Nigel Benn Jr. Or Conor Benn, sorry. So yeah, that was they're winding me up deliberately, but. People saying, and I said this the other week, oh yeah, it's a no-risk fight for Khan to fight Canelo. It's a no-risk fight for Brook to fight Triple G. There's always options when they come back down. Well, firstly, for Kell Brook, he will not be fighting at 147 again. That's my opinion. Win, lose or draw, he won't be coming back to 147. So he's going back to a pretty talentless 154 division. But also, this is a lose fight for both of them. They're very similar situations. Amir Khan got blasted out again. Seriously blasted out by probably what will be the knockout of the year. The same could happen to Kell Brook. So saying that there's no risk is nonsensical. There is a risk because you could get seriously hurt. Kell Brook could get seriously hurt, and he's odds on. They were both odds on to be knocked out. Amir Khan fought very nicely for 3 or 4 rounds and got sparkoed bad for the 3rd or 4th time in his career. Kell Brook could never fight again after September the 10th. Honestly.
That always bothers me when people are like, oh well, he had no risk involved. It's like, well, you know what? I mean, you can't put a price on your family. on your kids. You know, I mean, you know, this is boxing, and people have gotten seriously hurt, and he could get seriously hurt. Just like, I mean, we all thought Khan did for about 10 seconds after he got completely destroyed. So, yeah, you know, this is a violent sport, and you know, things happen. So, you know, I personally think that you know, that Kell Brook is taking a huge risk, and no one should sell him short. Just like I don't think anyone should have sold Khan short. Yes, it is true that they can go back to 147 or even to 154, and they do have options. But you know, you're talking about no risk from a career perspective. You know, in terms of, oh, what are my options after this is in terms of who I fight. But you know, when you say no risk, that doesn't mean from a personal standpoint. I mean, personally, he's risking quite a bit in getting in there with a larger man who actually is pound for pound one of the hardest punchers in boxing.
Correct. And what I'll also say, while we're on this, I suppose we've got more questions on
and,
it. But
I'm sorry, Adam. I have to go, by the way. I just wanted to peace out of here, guys. I'm sorry. But thanks for having me.
No problem. Donnie, do you want to tell us who you think would win at Crawford Postol before you go?
I'm going with Crawford points.
No problem. Thanks for jumping on, man.
See you,
mate. Thanks.
Thanks.
What I would say is, Steve, Eddie Hearn saying that Golovkin is pound for pound number one is absolutely ludicrous. That is one of the worst and completely wrong sales points that he's come up with in a very long time. Because Golovkin, for however much I love the man, he might well be have enough talent to be the pound for pound number one, but he is by no means, absolutely no way near gotten to prove it. So that is a.
He said AJ could be better than Sugar Ray Robinson along those lines. Anyway, he said that basically that AJ could be the greatest fighter the world's ever seen. So that's a fucking selling point that's worse than what he came out with Golovkin.
Well, fair enough. Well, that's two real bad ones anyway.
Yeah, he was still wrong with that one.
Yeah.
Right, Andy, question from Ricky Gravel. I know my answer to this one. Canelo versus Fernando Vargas at 154. I was a massive Vargas fan, so I'm going to have to go for Fernando. I really enjoyed his career.
Vargas for me, mate.
Are you serious? I mean, I'm no expert on Vargas, but...
He was good. Early on, he was good.
Yeah, fair enough.
Vargas in his prime was really, really good. I mean, well, put it this way, right? Take that shot that Canelo landed on Khan, right? Then look at the shot that Tito landed on Vargas, and he still got up off his arse and fought on. And if Tito lands a left hook like that on anybody, usually they're good as dead, right? Vargas got up and fought on.
Yeah, I loved Vargas' early career wins against the likes of Ike Corte. I think he beat Ronald Winky Wright, Raul Marquez, who was a decent fighter. Who else did he beat? Your boy Campas, who was still okay at that time. I mean, he had his facile wins against, like, obviously Howard Clark and Ross the Boss Thompson and all those guys. But yeah, the thing was about Vargas, he never ducked anybody. He got knocked out by De La Hoya. He went toe-to-toe with Trinidad. You know, even his interim fights, he was fighting decent guys like Vanderpool. Was it Fitz Vanderpool, I think he beat? Castillejo. Yeah. I
really enjoyed that, the Felix Trinidad fight when I watched that recently.
Great fight. I can't remember who else he fought. I mean, towards the end when he was fighting Mayorga, he was on the nachos and the tacos and all that.
That was brilliant. That Mayorga fight was fantastic.
Right, Mr. Paul Webb, I think, has rejoined us. Paul, are you there?
Hello, mate.
Excellent stuff. Thanks for coming back on. Right, question for you, Paul, from Wes Shaw on the Facebook page. Potential fights after last night. Who wins? I'm going to give you a list of fights here, one by one. You can go as in-depth as you want, or you can just tell us who you think is going to win. It's up to you. Right, Terry Flanagan versus Latikanen.
Terry Flanagan's a very good technical fighter. I think he has the ability to go the distance. Latikanen has more power and has also proven that he's comfortable over rounds, so I'd favour Latikanen at this moment.
Rigondeaux versus Kid Galahad.
We'll go with Rigondeaux unless Galahad's brother has been for another shipment and it goes through the testers. So I think I'll favour Rigondeaux on that one.
Is Galahad's brother a Russian citizen?
He could be. I think he's a citizen of Her Majesty's pleasure, isn't he? So I'm not sure if he can be doing too much right now.
Right. Bradley Skeet versus Vargas. I don't think it's Fernando Vargas he's talking about. Pick your Vargas.
Yeah, as in Kell Brook Vargas. That wasn't. Vargas again. I like Skeet. He's a good boxer, but he's not proved anything at that level. I thought he showed a lot of limitations against Gavin. Has he improved since then? I'm not sure. I don't think beating the likes of Sam Eggington necessarily means that you've improved a lot. I just think he's been fighting domestic level guys, and he's been making numerous defences or challenges for various fake WBO titles that mean nothing against guys who have done nothing. So, Vargas to stop him.
Tommy Langford against Chris Eubank Jr.
Chris Eubank Jr. stoppage. Again, I like Langford. I think he's got a lot of potential, but at this stage, I talked when he last fought before last night. Saturday night. I'm forgetting we're on a Sunday. I think again he's 12, 18 months away from anything like ready for a world title fight. I think Eubank, for all his faults, you have to put him around that kind of fringe world level. I just think he's nowhere near ready for that yet. I'm not sure he ever will be, but I like Tommy a lot. He trains really hard. He's got a good engine. His fundamentals are decent, and he showed he's got a bit of power. But no, he's a long way away from competing with the likes of Eubank for me.
If Eubank put the pressure on, just a little question of my own here, do you think that Langford would even be able to get to the second half of the fight?
No, if Eubank puts the pressure on against a large majority of fighters, a lot of them wouldn't get into the second half. I think that when we've seen him fight, when he fought the likes of Spike and others, there's a certain reluctance to what he's doing. He seems to be, I'm not going to say pacing himself, because he's got the energy anyway. I just think that he's part of his showmanship and part of the way he boxes, that when he knows he's in with someone who is that step below him, I think he just pot shots and wastes a lot of time in rounds. I think there's been a lot of fights where he could have ended far earlier, and not just the recent ones. Going back to the early fights on Channel 5, I remember him dragging guys into round 6 and 7 who looked like they wanted to be out of there in round 1 or 2, but Eubank would hit them, take 3 steps back, and then go in again. You know, he's not. I think he has the ability to be a very good finisher, but he's not a clinical finisher. He's not a ruthless finisher yet. But I think that's by his own choice rather than by his own skill limitation.
Finally, Paul, Liam Williams versus Carson Jones.
That's a bit of a weird one.
Imagine how dirty that would be.
Yeah, I was going to say, I presume that might be what the question was based on. I mean, Liam Williams, Carson Jones has dined on the fact that he gave Kell Brook a very, very difficult fight first time round. Some people thought he won. Certainly made Kell Brook refocus his career and his training. But I mean, after that, he drew with, was it Dean Byrne? And obviously he had the fight with Brian Rose. But again, Brian Rose is Brian Rose. We all know the limitations there. So yeah, you certainly can't favour Jones. I like Williams. I'm not sure he's round at the right time to get the fights. Again, a bit like Langford. I think he's better than Langford, but I think he needs more time. I listened to Dewey Powell the other day, and he talked about how there's no rush for Liam at this level, and I think he's right. I think there just needs to be a bit of a pause taken. It was a good win against Corcoran, but as much as I think I probably only gave Corcoran 1 or 2 rounds, but Liam Williams showed that he could get drawn into too much of a fight when I think skill-wise he was way above Corcoran.
Right, the next question, it's as much of a statement as a question actually from somebody on Facebook. I haven't managed to screenshot your name, so apologies about that, but I shall be a medium for this gentleman's thoughts, and then if anybody wants to comment afterwards, you're free to do so. Anonymous says, I've previously discussed with a number of people, both fans and members of the boxing family, how they thought a Canelo versus Brook fight would play out. It was pretty much an even split, with fans tending to side with Canelo and boxers and trainers on the whole thinking Brook outboxes Canelo. Now people are complaining about the Brook versus Triple G contest as a one-sided and unfair due to weight differences, but were happy for Canelo versus Brook to take place. On that basis, do the panel think that Canelo versus Brook would be a well-matched fight? And if so, why do they think that Triple G versus Brook is therefore a mismatch? I'm no Brook fan, by the way, but my personal feeling is that the fight will be a better contest than people think, but Triple G will get to him in 7 to 9, as Brook gasses due to the extra weight. I do think it's more competitive than Eubank Jr., who has limited skills and boxing intelligence. I also dispute people's claims that Eubank has an iron chin. He was buzzed by Spike and Blackwell, and has fought no one with punching power at elite level yet. So pretty much Canelo versus Brook was the crux of that question. Does anybody have any comments they want to make, or should we move on?
I think he's pretty much spot on his comments there, mate, in all honesty. Because I'll probably say Brook and Canelo are probably roughly around about the same size. I've not seen as I said again, I've not seen the videos yet because obviously I'm away, but people are going on about like Golovkin and Brook is, the size difference is quite telling. Now, I did say last week that this was going to dispel the myth as to how big a middleweight that Golovkin was and how big a welterweight that Brook is. So from what I'm hearing, apparently Golovkin showed that he was basically at a big middleweight, and Brook's going to get wasted here.
Yeah, I mean, comments onto that question. Canelo against Brook would obviously be a lot closer than Brook versus Golovkin, but I think that's a given anyway. Like Andy said, we've seen the evidence now that Golovkin is taller and bigger than Brook, and Brook's obviously got to grow into middleweight as well. So I just, I think we've posed the question before. I just can't see what Brook can do to win. I think the only thing he brings really to the table that will trouble Golovkin is his jab, and I think Golovkin's good enough to negate that after the early parts of the fight. I just don't see, Brook's no massive puncher at welter. He certainly ain't going to be a massive puncher at middle.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Question on the YouTube comments by Simon Neelan. This was in response to me asking for questions recently and topics because we thought we were going to be pretty thin on the ground. But actually, over the last couple of weeks, we've had quite a lot of things to discuss, so we haven't really needed it. But anyway, Simon asks, topic for discussion. Andy, you're probably the main man for this one. What are the best books on boxing? Years ago, I read Hauser's biography of Ali. He also mentions AJ Lieblin's The Sweet Science and Norman Mailer's The Fight, and mentions McIlvenney as being a great writer. Thanks, great show. Is there any books you can recommend to Simon, Andy?
Yeah, that McIlvenney book, I think it's oh God, what is the name of it again? It's a kind of Tale from Ringside type book. Norman Mailer's book about the Rumble in the Jungle was quite good. Sam Langford, that's a good book. Roberto Duran's. I really liked Sugar Ray Leonard's recent book actually, but he has left out a bit about the fact that he really did kick the fuck out his wife. Mike Tyson's Truth. That's again, he's come out since stated that he hadn't been totally honest with us in that book, so maybe it's worth a read at the end of the day as well. He does go into a wee bit detail about his prison stint as well. I'm actually reading Ron Lyle's book just now. Actually, it's quite an interesting read. I'm not spoil it for anyone, but he's led quite a well. He's actually a really good guy. I mean, he's done really hard time, that boy, as well, and he got basically got backing, some political backing as well, to try and get his sentence overturned to get an early door so he can get out, and just basically how he actually came through the amateur ranks and become a heavyweight contender. That's quite good to see. Bryn Jonathan Butler's book, obviously, on Guillermo Rigondeaux. I would recommend that one.
Yeah, it's very good. Very good.
Trafficking stuff and that as well, mate.
I've not read many, but Four Kings on the boys from the 80s is absolutely brilliant. That's a brilliant book, that.
Kimball, I think his name is.
Yes, that sounds right.
There's quite a lot. It depends on what you like to read. I mean, there's a lot of very good autobiographies, or sort of some decent autobiographies. But the problem is, a lot of them haven't really been written, as we all know, by the actual fighters. So I always wonder quite how honest a lot of the stories are. A book that I like, it's more political edge, and I prefer it because there's a bit more of the story behind it. It was a book called Unforgivable Blackness. It's based about the life of Jack Johnson. And I think it's good because it talks boxing, but it also talks about the time, and it shows the historical importance of how certain fights were, everything sort of pre-World War II and pre-World War I in some cases. So that's a good one. The Carl Froch autobiography is that's a bit more of a casual reader's book. I'm sure Adam has got 3 signed copies of it.
Well, I've got the one signed copy that I've actually quite enjoyed reading. Yeah.
And my final one, which is for a brilliant writer, a lot of everyone knows, Mark Turley. Again, it's not really a happy, cheery book. Is about the book Journeyman. that Mark Turley written. It chronicles several stories of well-known, some still active, some now retired, journeyman fighters on the UK scene. I think it's a lot of people that listen to this podcast understand. Obviously, they are, big boxing fans, and they kind of understand how the game works. But if you didn't, and I've read quite a few reviews from the book from sports writers who don't really know boxing, it's a big eye opener to how prospects work, how ticket sellers work, and everything else. And it's some of the tales in it are quite inspiring, some of them are quite sad, but it's a good read.
Also, two others, Dark Trade by Donald McRae and Steve Compton's book on How I Grab Live Fast, Die Young.
All good suggestions. I would echo most of them. Also, Dominic Calder-Smith's book on when he interviews a lot of Mike Tyson opponents from about 10-15 years ago was very good. And Facing Ali, I cannot remember off the top of my head the author, apologies, but he interviewed a lot of Muhammad Ali's opponents. Speaking of George Kimball, actually I had the pleasure to meet Kimball a couple of times. He was dying of cancer at the time, but he decided to just get as much writing done as he could. And he was travelling over to Ireland quite a lot in about 2008, 2009. And he was at a few fights, including Eddie Highland fights, and also at the Bernard Dunn Carter Cordoba fight. And I got a chance to speak to him, pick his brains quite a few times. So it was a pleasure to meet Mr. Kimball, and Four Kings is an excellent read as well. Also, Bryn Jonathan Butler's, as Andy says, and a shameless plug, if you're a fan of Irish boxing, I have 7 Irish boxing review books out, so you can go and buy them if you see fit.
Go on, Steve.
Yeah, I'll make a few pennies maybe, who knows. Right, Paul just dropped off. He's back with us now. Actually, Paul, I'm going to go to you with this one from Box to Box on the YouTube comments. It's a pay-per-view related question. We've actually gone through the pay-per-view situation quite a few times, but briefly, if you want to just address this one. Box to Box is asking you, given the pay-per-view situation, whenever people say don't pay for it, don't watch it, if you don't like it, don't buy it, what would you say to people who come up with that? What would your response be?
I think I don't like it when you hear that from the promoters when they say, no one's forcing you to buy it. I think it's a very cynical line because it's basically saying, look, we're happy to offer you average and subpar content, but no one's forcing you to buy it. The only thing I would say is, unlike in the 90s and 2000s when it was Hatton and Calzaghe and Hamed and various others on pay-per-view, there are literally, as much as people don't like watching streams, and some people I find sometimes them very frustrating, there are hundreds and hundreds of streams available. There's always stuff online. If not, get down to your local pub and watch it. You can still watch the fight, but I think it's important, if you're against the concept of pay-per-view, and I know I've wavered on this in the past, but it's my same issue I have with StubHub. If you're against the concept of something, you can't just then go ahead and do it. If you don't want to buy pay-per-view, then don't buy it. It's 2016. There are 100 different ways you can watch fights. Some of us watch fights on Showtime streams or HBO streams. Like I said, for the last Anthony Joshua fight, I watched it down the pub. It cost me the same amount of money, and again, in a way, I'm still contributing because the pub's paying for it. But I think the days of I'm surprised that the pay-per-view market works as it does with the way that with streaming. I think the WWE tackled it so well by basically saying, look, we realise the fans no longer want to pay $50, $60 for a wrestling event. Let's do it on a subscription basis. It's far cheaper, and they maintain a customer base for the year, and the customers are quite happy. So, but yeah, just don't buy it. And I'm now in the position where Brooke Golovkin, I've got that conundrum of, right, I'm going to have to buy it now. But I won't. I'll just find a way to watch it. I don't think that any fighter really should justify you paying it, but there are some people like Dave Lee who will buy every pay-per-view and don't bat an eyelid. That's why I'm not critical of people that buy it. It's just, if you don't like it or you hate the concept, then there are other ways.
If me and Deck Taylor had a scrap in my back garden, Dave Lee would pay for it.
he's bought everything. He's bought some. I mean, I remember I bought some shocking cards or cards afterwards that I thought, what was that? But he's bought everything.
What is it? He's supposed to go in the night.
Oh, he's working.
He was running late. He's running late from work. He said he would jump on at the end if he could make it, but he hasn't been able to. So he's maybe saving up his pennies through work to buy the next big pay-per-view on Bravo or Fish Chips and Scraps.
I see the YouTube chat has got a lot of the non-Spig Pod fans listening in, by the way, can obviously leaving the shitty comments and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a
That's
non-spin
okay,
podcast.
as long as they're listening in, they can leave whatever comments they want.
Yeah.
It's that line in the NWA movie when the guy's like smashing all the records up, and he says to Eazy-E, "Oh, this is terrible," and Eazy-E goes, "No, it's not. They bought them."
Just remember, the Nuthouse makes podcast careers. It always has done. It always will do.
With the launching
That's Andy
pad.
Patterson back with us. Back with us again, Mr. Patterson. Yeah, just final word on pay-per-view before we move on. Whenever Cleverly Bellew 2 was on, I remember watching it in a pub, which were illegally live streaming it to a big screen. So double whammy, not paying for pay-per-view that night.
That's Alex Morris would be thrilled with that. That's right. They'd all approve of that. By any means necessary.
I'll be gutted if I'd have paid for that. Anyway, we'll not get stuck into that again. Thank God they haven't made a third fight yet. Adam Smith, question from Leston Venables. I have a question for Tuesday. Thank you, Leston. On paper, which cards are better, 2016 or 2015? I think what he's saying is the whole of 2015 worse than what we've had so far in 2016?
We're talking
got a good memory.
UK. Yeah, you're testing my memory now, and you've got to bear in mind that 2016 I virtually switched off boxing completely. Oh God. 2015 was 2015 better. 2015 was probably better. We've got a good Leeds card coming up. That is decent, and we've got a good Crawler card coming up. That Manchester one is also decent. Neither of which we've got to pay extra for. December card was okay. That was on pay-per-view. I honestly don't know, Steve. We've had some tripe, but I'm going to say 2016's been better only because it's not finished yet, and 2015 was absolutely horrendous.
Fair enough. And that's a good answer, by the way, because that was a difficult question on the hop, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you going through that one, Adam. Right, Andy, question for the pod from Mr. Yusuf Ali. Thanks, Yusuf, for listening. What are the panel's thoughts on open scoring? We don't see so much of the open scoring now. I know the WBC were doing it outside of America for a while. Are you a fan, no?
No, mate, I never was. I mean, I remember the time Austin Trout against Canelo. I remember it was a big... I remember the podcast we did afterwards, actually. After 8 rounds, I think they had Canelo. I think mostly had Canelo up. You know, basically, I forget the scorecards, but I think they had Canelo basically winning the fight at that point, and some people had complained that Canelo just basically went into Austin mode. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of it, because you can actually see the kind of like people arguing and saying as well, you know, in football or basketball or NFL, and that, you know what the score is, so you know what you've got to do. If that was the argument the WBC were making, that, you know, if the fighters knew what the score was, then they would know what to do in the fight. You know, either press, you know, just basically go for it. I really don't know, mate. I've never been a fan of it, in all honesty. So just keep it as it is. It's more, as you say, a WBC kind of situation. But you know, it doesn't seem to kind of. I think it only seems to be brought in certain countries or certain maybe states in America. I've only seen it kind of maybe in operation in Japan, mostly, but I've never really kind of seen it getting reused most recently anyway, and the only time I've seen it, or the last time I can remember it anyway, would be the fight in Thailand, which I think it was one of the minimum weight guys or whatever it was, but you know, I'm not a big fan of it though.
No, I think one of the worst ones I saw was either the first fight or the rematch of John Mark Mormick against O'Neal Bell. It might have been on the Zab Judah Baldomir fight in New York, if I remember correctly, and it was a real humdinger for the first 8 or so rounds. And then the scorecards came back somehow, I think, saying that Mormek was in an unassailable lead, and then he just pretty much started just peddling for the last 4 rounds, and the fight descended, you know, into a complete farce, really. So I'm not a great fan of open scoring myself. Paul, final question for you. You didn't really get much of a say on the Rigondeaux or the Flanagan card in Wales, so this is a question from Master Mode 33. It's directed at the Master of Dark Arenas. Was Frank Warren pissed off when the lights got turned on Saturday night? What happened there? Did someone flip the switch or something?
No, there was a scrap in the crowd, and they
It was
early in the Williams fight, I think, and they ended up turning the lights on for about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think the police, because the police came to the venue because of the security was. It's difficult sometimes to gauge how much security you're going to need at shows. Sometimes it can be complete overkill, and there's just lots of guys in yellow t-shirts stood around staring at each other. And I mean, I've been at shows, and I'm sure you will have, Steve, when you've been close up and you think, Christ, there needs to be more security here. So that was it. It was just a case of obviously Williams fans were, fairly vocal and they looked fairly up for a scrap. I think, again, listening to what Dewey said, it's from a fairly rough part of Wales. And obviously Corcoran's, there's a lot of travellers that came, and I think you put the two together in a fairly small venue. There was always the possibility of trouble, and obviously Terry Flanagan, I don't know if Flanagan's fans were involved, but they've always been up for a scrap in the past. So I think it's a difficult one. They had to, but obviously from a security point of view, they've had to do it. I'm not going to throw Frank under the bus on it though, because it is just hard to gauge. I remember going to when I was at Gavin Bundu, and I remember looking around and there was nobody, what seemed to be no one there. And it was a point when Gavin had been dropped, the whole crowd were on their feet and they were getting very close to the ring, and the security was just non-existent. So it's a tough one. But and I said the ticket sales, I think it did okay. I think, I don't know how full it was, whether it was 50% or 75%. I can't really recall looking at. They don't show many crowd shots for that obvious reason. But it's a shame because the show deserved more than what it gets. But how many times have we said that about Warren cards?
Yeah, I think last I was totting up, I think it's about 150 or so live shows, give or take, that I've been to. And to be honest, considering it's boxing, the reputation it has amongst people, you don't see it. I haven't seen it kick off as many times as you'd think, but a few times. I remember Martin Lindsay against Paul Appleby was quite heated in the Ulster Hall. There was no segregation between the local fans and the Scottish fans, and I think the only security was literally Clifton Mitchell, and that was about it. There's nobody else there. But other than that, I've seen quite a few scraps, and in fact, I remember taking my wife to a small hall show, and I insisted beforehand, oh no, don't be worried, it's fine, there's no trouble at boxing. And then of course what happens, right behind her, two people start punching the heads off each other and had to bring her to ringside for the rest of the show. So needless to say, Mrs. Wellings will not be attending any more boxing shows.
Yeah, there's been a few. I can remember the Amir Khan Dimitri Salita fight where the crowd was just vile, and another Amir Khan fight which would have been, if it was Katalnik or one similar, where anyway, at Manchester Arena, and there was a lot of scraps in the crowd. And then the funniest one for me was Kelbrook Matthew Hatton, which was
I was there.
Yeah, which there was a brilliant moment where a guy opposite the block from us, clearly a Sheffield supporter or a Kelbrook supporter, basically ran the full length of the stairs up to the block, jumped across a row, threw a punch at some guy, and then ran, and he was chased by about 20 people down the stairs. But it was like one-man army of a Sheffield from Yorkshire. I'm going to go hit him.
Fair play to him.
Yeah, he gave it a go.
The worst one I saw, and I haven't been to nowhere near as many shows as you lot, but the worst one I saw was, remember the Magnificent Seven card Frank put on in Birmingham? It had Enzo and Chisora, Gavin, I think Cleverly was
Macklin
on there, De Gea was on there, Macklin. That was really, really bad because you had Gavin's Birmingham City Zulus turned up quite late.
Yeah.
They were clashing with the Welsh guys, and there was even when the lights go off and the lights concentrate on the ring, there was fighting in between rounds, and then the security tried to go up the stairs and didn't make it very far, so the security got it as well, and there was genuine oohs and ahs around the rest of the stadium that was pretty full, that were watching the action in the crowd. It was that was quite serious.
It's almost as if putting on 7 big names from completely different parts of the country and shoving them all in one venue wasn't the smartest. I mean, it was a nice idea, but yeah, that's the thing. Birmingham City fans in general, historically in boxing, there's the very famous Nigel Benn fight where Carl Froch's trainer McCracken was fighting, and it was against a Manchester United Manchester-based fighter. I can't remember who. Someone will know in the chat probably. And that was just chaos at ringside. I think recently when Hearn tried to put Cleverly on a Josh Warrington Leeds undercard when Cardiff were playing away in Leeds that day. Well, I mean, a good idea in theory, and then the Yorkshire police just said no. So yeah, there's been a few.
Them Gavin fans at that Birmingham card were literally, and I mean literally, were in the stadium for 5 minutes before it was kicking off.
Well, that's the thing. He sells quite a few tickets, Gavin, but unfortunately, and I really like the bloke, as you know, but he supports the dirtiest, most rubbish, most horrible football club outside of Millwall. So yeah, less said about the scum the better.
Okay, we'll move on. Right, that's all the Twitter and Facebook questions finished. Thanks for sending them in, guys, as usual. Chuck them in for next week. We'll be back on Sunday evening. The previews will be coming up at the end of the show. What time are we going on? 9:45. Yeah, we're gonna start wrapping up soon. We're gonna rocket through the Bellews before we do so. Yeah, I'm running on empty, Adam, but I've put in the training this week, so I'm gonna hopefully get through to the end of the show. Who's that, Andy? Yeah.
I say, but I've got like 10% left on my phone, so I speed it up a bit.
Yeah, we're going through the Bellews now. I'm just going to rocket through them and then ask for you guys. Right, first Bellew of the Week nomination is for Gareth Lewis, who tweeted at Mr. Rigondeaux, thanks for taking the time out for this picture. And then he showed a picture of him and some random dude. And then Rigondeaux tweeted back to him, ha ha ha, that is not me. Ask for a refund, my friend. So that was quite a good one from Mr. Lewis there. Amir has nominated the BBC. They got quite a few things wrong in their article regarding Terry Flanagan and Jazza Dickens. Tom Rollinson has been nominated after he said that the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder got totally outclassed by Anthony Joshua. Sad for the heavyweight division that he's a quote-unquote champion. No, Mr. Rollinson, I don't think that Joshua and Wilder have actually fought each other yet. This is the fruits of Eddie's labour, says Mr. Johnny Clash, who brought that one to our attention. Steve Antrobus has nominated Steve Bunce, or Steve Bounce as he calls him, for asking Rigondeaux, did he know that he broke Jazza Dickinson's jaw instead of his jaw? Second nomination for Buncey for saying that Montenegro is a funny word and is ridiculous. Sorry, Buncey, you're getting a few nominations tonight. Nomination for Mr. John Rawling for saying that, let's have a look, that Jazza Dickens has only lost to Kid Gallagher. Nomination for Tarun Mehta, who tweeted out, congratulations, boxer Vijender Singh, for winning the game and becoming the new WBC middleweight champion. A great achievement. I don't think it was the middle. Some WBC Pacific title, I think he won, or something like that. A nomination for NDTV.
I see Australian boxing started following Kerry Hope nowadays and actually tweeting about him quite often. It's because he stays there. He's actually British, you know.
Yeah, he's Welsh, but he has I think he's lived there long enough to get an Australian licence. That is what makes him eligible for these Pacific titles and stuff. Nomination for NDTV Sports. I think that's the Indian channel who did their Tale of the Tape, and they put Kerry Hope's reach in at 6 feet 10 inches and Vijender Singh's reach in at 7 feet. So, some pretty long arms on display over in India there, according to NDTV Sports. David Odell has nominated Dillian White for having, even though he lost, he has decided to overlook the fact that he suffered a fairly brutal KO, and according to his Twitter account, he is still 17-0 and undefeated. Better get that changed, Mr. Dillian White. Nomination from Ozzie Smith for Joe Gallagher. This was regarding the Liam Smith. Bet365 put out a tweet saying, who wins? Retweet for Canelo and like for Beefy Smith, and Joe Gallagher retweeted. So he hasn't got much faith in his fighter on September the 17th. He obviously thinks that Liam is going to get knocked out. And nomination for Oscar De La Hoya, who has stated, now Oscar says a lot of crap, doesn't he? Liam Smith is the most popular fighter in the UK, according to Oscar. And that, my friends, you'll be glad to hear, is it. Adam, any nominations?
Yeah, I just had I had one from Spencer Fair, and I forgot who tweeted us in, but he was saying that if he came back now, he would sell out arenas. That was a good one. And then I've got another one. It's Dale the Great has sent one in. He's a regular Bellew of the Week contributor. Callum Smith, when talking about a potential fight with George Grove, said, "We're both two very good fighters, both unbeaten."
Any more, Smidder?
No, that's it from me, pal.
Andrew, any nominations?
No nominations. Steve Stalin, as you know, I forward anything I get to you nowadays.
Okay, and Paul, anything to nominate?
Yeah, Toby King, the Smith Brothers sponsor, or I don't know if he's the former sponsor, but certainly a huge Smith Brothers fan and supporter, tweeted something on the lines of, go on Swifty lad, hashtag and the new. And I pointed out that he already holds the belt. So I just sent him a saying hashtag and still. I'd like to nominate Kurt Ward at Boxing Asylum for that tattoo. That he's had done.
Just that general Snapchat account is cringe.
Just Kurt in general at the minute. He's brilliant. His Twitter account is fantastic to keep an eye on. I'm glad he's discovered his camera. It's bringing much amusement to the world. Joe Gallagher for complaining that no media came out to cover Liam Smith's press conference against Canelo, ignoring the fact that the fight is on Box Nation. So of course Sky aren't going to send a crew out there. Box Nation did send Steve Lillis, and no newspapers go over for press conferences for a fight like that. So I'm not sure who he was expecting to show up, but it's just, he did the same thing when Paul Smith fought Andre Ward, and no one went over because it was a mismatch and a bit pointless, a bit like this fight. I had another, but my mind's gone a blank and I can't find it now, which is really annoying. Jake Wood from EastEnders fame, tweeting that he's got a feeling, and we know what a big hardcore fan Jake Wood is, that Kell Brook is going to win. So get your bets on, you can bank on it, according to Max Branning from EastEnders.
Shall we start a Twitter poll? Who's the more casual boxing fan, Jake Wood or Adam Smith?
You talk yourself down. Just because you don't know anything doesn't make you a casual.
Right, Andy's losing his battery. Let's go through them very quickly. Gareth Lewis, BBC, Tom Rollinson, Steve Bunce, John Rawling, Taron Muta, NDTV Sports, Dillian White, Joe Gallagher, Oscar De La Hoya, Spencer Fearon, Callum Smith, Toby King, Jake Wood, and Mr. Kurt Ward. Paul, who are you going for?
Oh, sorry, did you come to me then?
Yeah, who are you going for? Who are you picking?
The Rigondeaux photo, it's just funny. Just pure for just tagging. It's also Rigondeaux's response to the picture I thought was brilliant. Obviously, it's not really him, but his press man's response I thought was very funny.
Who was the guy who got nominated before Steve Bunce there, actually?
Tom Rollinson. He was the one who said about Joshua versus Wilder.
That one. I'm having that one.
I'm going for Oscar De La Hoya because Oscar said that Liam Smith is the most popular fighter in the UK.
Oh shit!
Right,
I want to change to that one.
Oh, right. Well, we're going to have a draw then because I'm picking Gareth Lewis, the Rigondeaux fight, the Rigondeaux photograph guy. So we have a draw between Gareth Lewis and Oscar De La Hoya. Two different spectrums of boxing there.
Short title and regular title this week, guys.
Okay. Congratulations, everybody. Right, everybody's had enough, so we're going to fly through this. Andy, we know you're losing battery. Thanks for everyone who's listened in today as well. We do appreciate the support. Very briefly, Wednesday the 20th of July next week for our preview, Shingo Wake fights Jonathan Guzman in Japan. I'm sure nobody really wants to discuss that. Saturday the 23rd of July, Delvin Rodriguez takes on Sean Cameron in Connecticut. Donnie could go and view that one if he wishes.
Sean Cameron, is that the guy? Sean Cameron, I know that name. Who's that?
Did he fight?
Isn't there a heavyweight Sean Cameron?
You're thinking of the wrong Sean Cameron. That's one that David Tua decapitated. So I think it's a slightly different Cameron.
Yeah, this is. But talking of New Zealand heavyweights, Andy, Joseph Parker's fighting Solomon Homono. But the fights that we all want to talk about is from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada, where Terence Crawford headlines against Victor Postol. Oscar Valdez also appears. Jose Benavidez fights Francisco Santana, and Alexander Gvozdyk fights Tommy Karpency. Andy, Terence Crawford versus Victor Postol for the WBC and WBO super lightweight titles. How do you see this one going? Are you looking forward to it? I know I am.
I'm looking forward to it, mate. It's one of those fights. It just seems to kind of floated under the radar, you know. Like thinking about it a wee bit about it today actually, even though I'm really wanting to kind of see a bit more tape, but Postol, you know, many Klitschko, as many people will say, he will jab, he's got a good jab, he will hold from time to time, but I just think that Crawford being a wee bit kind of thicker at the weight, obviously I'm going to have to side with Crawford here. I think he's just, you know, far better skill set. Just the fact that he can switch stance. I'd be interested to see how Postol deals with the you know, the switching the stance of Crawford as well, because I just think he does it really effectively as well. He's just really good at orthodox and southpaw stances. So it's going to be really good. It was really interesting to see how Postol actually adapts it. Has he got the adaptability himself to kind of actually deal with southpaw? So I dare say he's probably trained a few southpaws as well during sparring. Freddie Roach, I agree with what you said. Don't sleep on him. Postol, as I says, I would actually have backed Postol at the time when the Garcia mandatory was getting called at the time. But there's levels to this game, as we all know, and as I say, I think Crawford's on a different level compared to like say Danny Garcia. So I've got to go and say that Crawford probably on points. I would be very, very, I wouldn't say shocked, but I would be pleasantly surprised if Crawford does get a stoppage here. I did have a quick skimming through the WBC rules the other day there. I noticed that, I think it was yesterday, that Crawford's still sitting at £6 off the weight limit, whereas Postol sitting about £2 or £3 off the limit. So you just don't know if, you know, okay, you know, £6-7 isn't a lot of weight, but you just don't know how he's going to lose it and stuff. So you just don't know if it might affect him at the end of the day. But I still think Crawford might just have a wee bit too much for him, and so I've got to go Crawford on points.
Adam, I'm also going for Crawford on points. I know you fancy the Crawford knockout. I think that Terence's skill set, his speed, might just be too much for Postol. Saying that, Postol's a big old lump. We saw him maybe staggered a little bit against Aydin. He stood up to the shots of Matisse very well, obviously stopping him with the punch in the eye and showing that he's an effective fighter at diffusing the opponents as well as beating them up. He's a big old lump, Postol. Do you think that he could cause Crawford major problems early in the fight, or do you think he might come on late? How do you see this going stylistically?
I don't think he'll cause him major problems, to be honest. I think it's going to be the other way around, and you know, as already mentioned, Crawford switch it in. I am high on Crawford. I'm high as you like, actually. I don't think there's any other fighter out there that tops my list. You know, especially going forward, as in, you know, he's going to get better in the future. I think he's brilliant, Crawford, and I'm looking forward to watching him. I just think that he's going to do Postol for speed, and I think he's going to, you know, the potential to bamboozle him a little bit with his speed and his switch it in, and his accuracy, to be honest with you. Postol is probably still, by idiots like me, still probably underrated, given that he had to wait a long time to get a shot. He waited a long time to get Danny Garcia, who bottled it, and then obviously he did a job on Matisse, which is absolutely fair play to him. It's a good fight. It's a good fight for Crawford in every sense you look at it. Really, he's hoping to, you know, unify half of the belts with this fight. Postol is, for that reason, is seen as a legitimate fight, and also it's another fight for Crawford at super lightweight, or sorry, light welter. Whereas, and it's another fight for him to showcase his talent. He's not on pay-per-view yet, but he's heading in that direction, and possibly at the other end of this fight could await the Filipino congressman. So it's a good all-round for Crawford. It will be competitive, I think, at times, but I do see I'm a strong favour of Crawford in this fight.
Paul, Terence Crawford is obviously looked upon as Bob Arum and Top Rank's breakthrough star. They're hoping he's going to take up the Pacquiao mantle, as Adam mentioned there. This is a pay-per-view fight in America. Do you think it's something that's going to do decent numbers? Do you think it will be well priced enough and well publicised?
I didn't know it was pay-per-view.
Attention.
I was going to say, yeah, it is. Adam saying about Crawford being a future pay-per-view star. This is pay-per-view. Yeah, no, it's right. They've priced it slightly better than normal, but it's still $50. I think it's $60 for HD, so it's still an awful lot of money. It's pay-per-view because HBO boxing budget is through the floor at the minute. They're being very selective with how many dates they've got and who gets what dates and what fights they're doing. I think on pay-per-view this will do really poorly. I think their break mark or their attempt mark is 100,000. I think if it does that, I will be very surprised, considering Golovkin and Lemieux only did 150. So I think it'll be a challenge. If they get 6 figures, I think they'll be more than happy with that. I like Postol a lot because I think that he did things the right way. I think there are a lot of fighters that get themselves into a mandatory position or they get a shot at a title or a vacant belt and they've not really fought anyone, or they may have fought one ranked contender. He's been in with quite a wide variety of styles, Corley and Ideen, 2 complete opposites, but the kind of fighters that I think you need to prepare yourself when you go up to this kind of level. And I do like him. I think his win against Matisse was very solid, and there is a big but coming here, Terence Crawford is one of the best fighters in the world. And I genuinely think that if he stays active and he's matched properly, I think he could become a real top 3, top 4 pound for pound fighter. He's in a position, because of the weight class not being brilliant globally, to clean up. I think he's had some great wins. I'm going to points purely because I think that Crawford, if he's in with a banger, I think he may resort to boxing and moving, and Postol can certainly whack. But Crawford has power in both hands. His knockout percentage ratio is pretty decent. I don't know, I think it's 22 and 28. I might be completely wrong there. That might be Postol. But he's a banger and he can hit, but I think he'll sit behind the jab. I think he'll box. I don't think Postol will come out and bum rush him like I think people expect. I think Postol will put his own boxing skills up against Crawford. I think he'll feel like he can match him fit to the jab, but I think there's a clear speed difference between the two. I think Crawford will win wide. I'm not saying stoppage purely because I don't think Postol's really been hurt that badly. I mean, obviously, yeah, he got caught in the Ideen fight, but that he's a big puncher and probably for the roids. Yeah.
Who said they expected Postol to come out and bum rush Crawford?
Well, I think a lot of people think because of the power and size advantage, Postol I think is a naturally bigger fighter. I know he's making the weight better, but the size of him, I think he's naturally going to come in as the bigger guy.
He is not a banger though. He is like a proper boxer. He's got a bit of power about him, but he is not a guy who comes out and looks like fucking smash you out of there. Never has been.
Yeah, that's my point. That's what I'm saying. I think he'll go and he'll put the faith in his own boxing skills. He won't need to go in there and try and stop Crawford. And I think a lot of guys that have come in against Crawford, lower level fighters like Beltran, etc., have felt that was the way to win. And then you find yourselves 4 rounds down on the card, and then you're chasing it from there. I think that's what Postol will find himself in. I think he'll be behind early, and I don't think he'll get close. I think it's a good fight, but I don't know why it's not really gripped me, and I know I'm going to be in the minority on that one because a lot of people are massively looking forward to it. I just think it'll be quite one-sided, but we'll see.
The good thing is at least Tony Weeks is the referee, for what I've just read there, so we know if anybody's hurt, they're going to get a chance to get themselves back into the fight, or survive the round or survive the scare.
Tony Weeks is, for me, is the best in North America at when a fighter is dropped or a fighter is put down, he gives them the second to steady themselves. There are so many referees in America that, I know Britain has a bad reputation for it, but a fighter gets down, he gets up, he wobbles, and the inclination is to straight away stop the count. I think Tony Weeks gives fighters a real opportunity, and I think he's very consistent. You know what you're going to get from him fight after fight, and if he is reffing, I've not seen that, but if he is reffing, then yeah, they'll be allowed to get a chance. But I don't see either man going down. I don't see either man being particularly badly hurt or staggered. I just think that Crawford's going to outbox him.
I agree with you, Paul. That's Paul Webb there, just finishing us off here on the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I think Paul broke it down pretty well. That's pretty much what I think is going to happen. I expect Crawford to win and win well. Going to close this thing down, guys. We've been on for 2 hours. Thank you to everybody who's jumped on, and of course everyone who's been listening. Don't forget to subscribe to us on the YouTube channel, on the iTunes, and leave a review. And also come over and join us on Facebook. Tell us what you think. Don't think there's anything else we can discuss now, guys. We'll see you again on Sunday. I'd like to thank Mr. Adam Smith, who jumped on from the beginning. Mr. Self-Confessed Casual, I think he's done pretty well. You'll all agree tonight. Andy as well has fought off his drunkenness to join us on the barbecue. Mr. Paul Webb, not to be denied connection issues. We're not going to stop Paul Webb. He's jumped on as well. And also we had some other guys on. Amir Khan, unfortunately, wasn't able to put his points of view across too well tonight because of Wi-Fi connections. We also had Mick Doonan and Donny Baseball. So, without further ado, guys, unless there's anything else to add, anybody want to add anything?
Fuck Shep.
Well, that was...
Not those type of comments. Mr. J Nady, but a draw back to Tarver Jones there. Thanks for listening, guys. We're draw to a close. We shall see you all next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.